live on a very special winning Monday in Studio B. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton alongside Jerem Jordan, and joining us now to recap how BYU got to 7-0 with a 24-21 win over Utah is ESPN's Trevor Matich, college football insider, expert, and national champion. Trevor, how are you feeling this Monday morning?
Relieved and elated. I mean, Utah was a team that could do everything to give anybody problems. They're strong at the line of scrimmage. They're fast on the perimeter. This was a game that BYU had to go take, and they did. And I tell you, what a feeling to have another 365 days of victory celebration over Utah, assuming that they don't meet in the Big 12 championship game.
That's true. I suppose that could happen. Probably not, but maybe.
Yep.
Where did BYU win this game?
They won the game, Jerem, on the critical moments, the critical downs. Utah outgained BYU by about 100 yards. I mean, they averaged about 6 yards per carry on the ground, Utah did. But in the critical moments, BYU rose up. For example, BYU stopped Utah on fourth down 4 times. One of them was on the snapped at the 8-yard line, 4th and 3. One was at the 12-yard line after a long drive going in on 4th and 1. And another was at the 28 heading down into scoring position. And so 4 fourth down stops to go with 2 takeaways by BYU's defense and no turnovers by BYU's offense. That's 6 drives that BYU stopped on 4th down and with a takeaway on a Utah team that was actually moving the ball pretty well otherwise. And it was those critical moments that BYU won, and that's what turned the game. And also, you've got the penalty situation where Utah had 12, BYU had 5. So that helps your offense, and it hurts their offense when it goes against them in terms of staying even with the chains and things like that. It was those moments that BYU played more cleanly than Utah. BYU rose up more than Utah did, and that was the difference.
Trevor Matich of ESPN on BYU Sports Nation. Trevor, how would you assess true freshman Bear Bachmeier's first quarterbacking experience in this rivalry game against Utah?
This guy is ice and he's nails all at the same time. He's frozen nails. I mean, the pressure in this game, he must have felt it, but you wouldn't know it. I mean, he was just out there playing ball and smiling and doing the right things. And that's the key thing. I mean, credit Aaron Roderick, offensive coordinator, for putting Bear Bachmeier in position to excel at what he does best. And that's running the ball. And it's throwing those lasers on slants and vertical routes in the seams where there's nobody in between quarterback and receiver, but there is a defender next to the receiver, and Bear will just laser that thing in and put it where his receiver can get it. It's just fantastic. And it's great to see him put in positions to be able to do that all the time. But what impressed me more than anything else is that Bear Bachmeier understood and executed the prime directive, which is don't turn it over. I mean, there's a great photo of Bear barreling towards the goal line on what became the game-winning touchdown in the 4th quarter. And he has both hands and both arms protecting that ball. And you know that he wasn't thinking, hey, how great would it be if I scored a touchdown here? He was thinking, my coach told me to protect that football first and foremost, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's what he did. He had no turnovers, which was, to me, the most impressive thing about Bear in this game. And to paraphrase the scripture very loosely, the prime directive for a freshman quarterback is seek ye first to protect the football, and all these wins will be added unto you. That's very loosely paraphrased, but that's exactly what Bear did, and that's one of the main things that allowed BYU to win just a 3-point game against their rival.
Hey, liken the scriptures unto yourself. Also, good Star Trek reference with Spock, the prime directive. I like that.
Yes, sir.
Better play, the hurdle or dragging with the O-line pushing everybody into the end zone for a touchdown at the end?
The hurdle was, the elevation wasn't great. It was sort of a low elevation. It was at the end because Utah's defense had him almost stopped, and Bear was fighting forward, and then here came the O-line. Here came Chase Roberts, big tall receiver, and they just did a bear push and just shoved him into the end zone from there. And I love it when it establishes physical dominance on that play. And that's what BYU did. They didn't have to trick them in space. They were able to just pound them in and drive them in with a physically dominant play. I loved it.
Trevor, now that BYU is 7-0, including a win over Utah, what do you feel like you can definitively say about this version of BYU football?
They are resilient, and they are put in position to win. So I think you've got a team that executes very well, and you've got a coaching staff that puts them in position to succeed if they execute well. And I love that. I mean, Parker Kingston's touchdown, 12-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter that put them up 17-14 was a jet sweep from the right, wide left. Utah had seen that movie before. They weren't fooled. Utah ended up with 4 defenders out in front of Parker Kingston as he tried to make his way to the left and turn it up towards the goal line from the 12-yard line. 4 defenders. But Aaron Roderick, offensive coordinator, had 4 blockers out there, including 2 offensive linemen. All 4 guys executed their block exceptionally well, and Parker Kingston just waltzed on in to the end zone, even though Utah's defensive play call, Utah's recognition, Utah's pursuit were flawless. The difference was BYU had guys out there to block them, and they did block them. And so you've got those 2 things going on. You've got BYU making key plays in key moments. You've got players executing schemes and plays that the coaches are putting them in position to succeed at. And that Parker Kingston touchdown was just a perfect example.
He's got 4 touchdowns the last 3 games. He's been on fire, which is awesome. Trevor, who was the unsung hero of the game?
I think you'd have to say safety, Faletau Satuala, number 11. He led the team in tackles, but it wasn't just the fact that he was all over the field. It's that he was laying the lumber all over the field. This game shaped up to be a physical game, and whoever had physical dominance would win. And as it was, I think it was pretty much an even match physically. Both sides did really well. But on the BYU side, Satuala was magnificent. There's one play that really stood out. I mean, I'm sitting there on the set at ESPN watching a whole bunch of games, including BYU, so we could do all the halftimes and postgame shows and stuff like that. And there was a ball that was almost complete by Utah on the sideline. Receiver had the ball. It looked to be a terrific catch. And Satuala shows up and just hammers that Utah receiver. And the ball was separated from the receiver before he even fell out of bounds and hit the ground. And the receiver knew that he had a moment that he probably wish hadn't happened. He looked like he was in pain. Now, he was okay, so we can have fun with the whole thing. At least I think he was okay. I hope he was okay. But the point is that Satuala came over and set a tone with a hit like that. And the whole rest of the defense of BYU is inspired by plays like that. Now, there were guys all over the field doing those kinds of hits, those kinds of physical plays. But Satuala, I think it was the unsung hero because people always look at Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly first, the linebackers, and they were both fantastic in this game. But Satuala was the guy that was the linchpin of everything. He erased potential big plays by Utah. He set a physical tone, and he made sure that those receivers knew that even if they caught the ball, it was really going to hurt.
It's another Matich Monday on BYU Sports Nation. Trevor, the Cougars jump up to number 11 in the new AP poll, and some BYU fans feel like BYU deserves to be in the top 10 with their resume coming off a big rivalry win. How do you see that in the conversation or debate? Does BYU deserve to be in the top 10 right now?
I think you can make the case. You can make a very good case. You look at the 3 teams ahead of them, Vanderbilt, Miami, Ole Miss, all have wins over teams that are currently ranked. But Utah was, I think, 23rd coming into the BYU game. BYU just knocked them out of the rankings. So, you can split hairs with that. And, I think BYU's deserving of being a top 10 team right now. But that'll take care of itself. I mean, the schedule coming up is really hard. And they passed the first most difficult test, Utah, but now it doesn't get any easier for the next 4 or 5 games or so. So, if BYU is worthy of being in the top 10, they will have a chance to prove it now.
You played for a national champion. BYU is undefeated at this point. They've done this 2 years in a row. Last year after BYU went 9-0, they lost to Kansas. Kansas was on a heater at the moment. Iowa State has lost 2 in a row. They have a bye week. They're waiting for the Cougs. They're hungry to prove themselves too. How does BYU avoid another year of another letdown in a big game at Iowa State?
Well, you learned the lesson of last year, right? I think there's a couple of things that'll help BYU. One is baked into the system where BYU doesn't do anything on Sundays when it comes to football. You know, they don't have meetings and things like that. Treatment probably, but that's about it. And so guys have a chance if they go to church. You know, different religions are represented. By the way, this is Bendel, and he's enjoying visiting with you guys too. And he just jumped into the camera shot.
Let's go.
Anyway, yeah. But being able to kind of reset your mind helps after a big win or a bad loss. You know, you go to church, you sing hymns, you know, you leave your other life outside the doors and you come in and you worship. And I think that helps to kind of reset you. And you don't get too high or too low because of football, because the next day, the most important things in life and in the eternities are reestablished in your mind. I think that really helps. Another thing is you get a veteran team because you don't win because you're up on game day. You win because you practice with focus and urgency every day of the week. You meet with focus and urgency. And then game day is a reflection of that. But understanding the peaks and valleys of football is important too. I was talking with John McNamara many years ago, who was the manager of the Boston Red Sox with Wade Boggs and Roger Clemens and World Series Boston Red Sox. And he was saying that in baseball, because you have so many games, you want to keep your guys at about 80% all the time. But he said football's different. He said football, you peak on game day, then you come down. Then you build yourself back up and you peak on game day again, then come back down. And what you don't want to do is peak too early, so on game day you're on the way back down, or peak too late so that you're not in the right point on game day. And so that means that on Tuesday practice, Wednesday, Thursday, you're building yourself up with physical precision and mental focus so that on game day you're ready to roll. And it takes the right kind of coaching. It takes the right kind of leadership to be able to make sure practice is that way. And that game day is the day that you peak. BYU has shown the ability to do that right now. And that combined with observing the Sabbath, I think puts BYU in a good position to reset their minds and be ready for the next day.
Trevor, let's finish with this. Texas Tech, in stunning fashion for many people, lose at Arizona State. What does that mean for the Big 12 Conference and for a team like BYU?
Well, it means that maybe Texas Tech isn't fully invincible. I still think they're one of the best teams in the country. But their quarterback was hurt, Barry Morton, and he didn't play. One of their top transfer defensive linemen was injured and now is out for the season. So, you know, they're having to go through some struggles of their own. And so it just looks like this conference is what we thought it would be entering the season, which is to say any one of 5 or 6 teams could probably win it. And the team that gets the most breaks, stays healthy, and plays the most cleanly without making the mistakes is the team that's likely to actually get there at the end, even though there are many worthy teams that have a very good chance. One of them, I'll tell you, if I were to tell you, this is how tight this conference is. If I were to ask you which Big 12 offense leads the conference in yards per rush, what team would you think of first?
Oh, man, Texas Tech probably?
Yeah, no, it's Cincinnati. If I were to ask you which Big 12 offense leads the conference in yards per pass attempt, which would you think of first?
You'd think Baylor.
Yeah, no, Cincinnati.
Wow.
Cincinnati, right? They're 6-1 right now, and they're looming for BYU in about a month. And so, you know, the BYU is in as good a position as anybody. But this conference will be one of the most entertaining championship races going right down to the wire of any in the country.
Trevor, it has been fantastic to speak with you and celebrate another BYU win against Utah. And hey, there are some guys on BYU's roster like you that will graduate, Tanner Wall and others, having never lost to Utah. Incredible that we are here.
And it's still matters. I want to talk to those guys 30 years from now because I will still be here.
I love it. Yes, you will. Trevor, great to talk with you, man. Be well. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Trev.
Thanks, guys.